Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel, the nation's premier real estate mastermind. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the podcast we have Ed Weinberg. Ed has been a real estate investor since the mid-1980s and invests in syndications and is going to talk with us as well about creatively buying businesses from tired business owners, something I'm very interested about. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. I'd like to start just from the top, a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate.
Well, I read some books that talked about real estate investment. It was really a while before I got into it. I got into it in Connecticut. I'm in Florida now. Real estate down here is a lot different locally. In all the major cities in Connecticut, there are plenty of multifamily houses. Most of them are twos. Some twos were turned into threes. Most built in the first 2 decades of the 1900s, which means today they're over 100 years old. They really didn't build any multifamilies after the 40s. So there were lots of them. I could get into it at the time with 5 or 10% down, and that's what I did. And I bought a house, a multifamily. The value of it went up. I refinanced it. Of course, they didn't give me as much money. They didn't give me as much money, or the loan to value ratio that they promised me originally. But from that, I bought another one, and continued on. I did specialize basically in at the time in long term. Something happened around 1990, the collapse of the savings and loan associations. So all of a sudden, something like 25% of the real estate in these large cities were owned by organizations with 3 and 4 letters, like FDA or FDIC. So at that point, and they really had a very good way to dispose of real estate then. The government decided that they were going to do auctions, and quarterly I could go to an auction in a room with 4,000 other investors, and that day they would auction off 700, 800, maybe 850 houses. And then you go in the back of the room or in the next room, and there's very easy financing. So during that, we'd go quarterly, we'd buy some single family houses, we'd fix them up, and we'd sell them. Today I call it real estate redevelopment. A lot of people call it flipping. I'll tell you, we didn't know that it was called flipping. You know why?
Why?
There were no TV shows.
Right.
Right. And it's the TV shows, flip this, flip that, flip this house. Anyway, today I mostly joint venture with people. I lend money from my IRA. I'm involved in some real estate, commercial, and mostly commercial real estate as a limited partner syndications. And I am a partner in a syndication that creatively buys businesses from tired business owners.
I have lots of questions about the tired business owners. And in fact, I don't know if you're familiar with this woman, Cody Sanchez, but she wrote a book that I'm reading. And basically, the whole book is centered around that idea. But before we get into that, and I do want to touch in on that, but before the podcast started, you mentioned electrical engineering background. Were you, when you got your first deal, and then when you got your next couple, were you full-time engineer at the time, or how did that work? Because I know a lot of folks who are newcomers will be listening to this, and they may be asking themselves, well, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not in the real estate space, but I've heard that real estate is how you can build wealth in America. But I don't know how to get in. It seems like everyone is going to the next fad that they see online, and you were there before really that was a resource. So how did you manage to do both, and what was that like for you?
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Well, okay, so when you say a resource, back then I read lots of books about real estate. Rather than going online and finding courses there. There's a guy named Marco Haraldson who had I'm trying to remember what they call it, financial freedom get-togethers once a year down in Orlando. And I'd go to those. I'd hear 10 different speakers. Maybe I'd buy 2 or 3 tape sets. Yeah, they were on cassette then.
Yeah.
I mean, they went from cassette to CD to DVD, and now they are online.
Right.
You might go to your local RIA, which is, first of all, there are 2 things I recommend for anybody starting out. First of all, make sure that you join your local RIA. RIA is Real Estate Investment Association. There is one in just about every major city. The other is on some online service that you use. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's one of the others. I'm more on Facebook than the other social media. Join a group, and I'm a member of both local groups that concentrate in certain states, or if the state's big enough in certain cities, and I'm a member of some national ones too. As a matter of fact, I have a Facebook group for real estate investors in Connecticut, which has over 12,000 members. And I started it, and it grew. So if you live in a certain area and there isn't one, maybe you could start your own. Yes, it takes years to get up to where you're going to have multiple thousands. But number one, it's a good way to network. Number 2, you can ask questions there. And the questions that you might ask in a national forum are different than ones that you'd ask in a local. If you have, for instance, every single state has different laws with regard to, say, eviction. So if you went into, I see this all the time. People go into a national group and say, they haven't paid in 2 months. How do I evict them? And the answer is, well, you didn't even tell us what state you're in.
Yeah.
If you said you were in a state I'm familiar with, and nobody can be familiar with all of them, but if it was a state I'm familiar with, then I would, I might be able to answer that question. I mean, the first thing I'd recommend doing is finding an attorney who knows how to do that. And by the way, I am a real estate agent in Connecticut with Keller Williams.
I have a soft spot for Connecticut because my family is actually.
I'm sorry, I'm a real estate agent in Florida with Keller. I was a real estate agent in Connecticut when I lived there. I moved down here about 6 years ago.
I said before the podcast, I said I love Florida. I love me some Florida. I go to the Dominican Republic. I eventually would love to move there, honestly, but every time that I go through Fort Lauderdale and Miami, and then I've had a relative who lived in Tampa, and of course I've been to Orlando. They're just beautiful, beautiful cities. But I was saying, yeah, my family way back when was from Connecticut. They were the Griswold clan, and there's apparently a Griswold, Connecticut. So have a soft spot for Connecticut. But what you said, resonates with me as someone along this journey, and I think will resonate with a lot of people because I started with the RIA, and I don't even really know how I stumbled into it, but it ended up, I got to the RIA. I ended up going to a conference. From the conference, I saw people who were doing what I wanted to be doing, and I said, there's something here. It's not just fluff. I can see myself as these people, coming from a similar background. And what stopped me initially was what I think stops a lot of people, is kind of this analysis paralysis. And so from the time that you saw the Marco Harrelson tapes and the get-togethers, was it like you dove in head first and you did your first deal, or was it like more of a let me do all of the due diligence?
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Okay, so I was living in, after I got out of college, I was in the Baltimore metropolitan area. And then I got a job. I changed jobs to a different engineering, different company in Connecticut. I moved there and I had this sticker shock when I saw what it cost to rent an apartment. So I looked around, I saw what it cost where I wanted to live, and then I saw where it cost in one of the major cities and found that it was a lot less in a major city, and that I could afford to buy something, but generally all I'm going to be able to afford to buy is a multifamily. And by the way, the amount of money a bank would lend me had nothing to do with what I felt comfortable in paying.
Yeah.
So, the two things where they would let you borrow up to X% of your salary. And I thought that the interest rate I'd been paying was too much. So I bought a 3-family and I moved into one floor. The other 2 floors were already rented out. And it was actually a very different lifestyle. I grew up in New York State, and I had contemporaries of mine who lived in New York City, and they were in one room apart. They're maybe making what I make, but they're in one room apartments. I had a 2-bedroom apartment with a living room and a dining room. they're in an apartment with plaster falling off the walls and cracking.
Yep.
And that were built, I don't know how many years ago, but weren't as well maintained. And even if they were, they'd never been updated. So
right.
I had what I thought for me was number one. There are several ways that you can that you increase your equity in a property. One, you move in, do some work on it. Two, your tenants are paying off your mortgage. And three, you have appreciation. And all of those together means that after so much time, you're going to make money. Now, you could buy a single family house, but the house you live in isn't an asset.
Right.
Assets pay, assets pay you money. Your car isn't an asset. You put money into your car. Your single family house, if you're living in it, that's not an asset. If you retire, you can sell your single family house, but where are you going to live? Today, with the increase in prices and the increase in interest rate, there's a lot of people out there who could sell their, I don't know, 2,200 square foot house, move into a 1,200 square foot house, and have the same payment.
Yep. You said something interesting. The multifamily dwelling that you got was actually at a lower price point than the single family homes. Was that common, and is that still the case?
Okay, it was at a lower price point per unit.
Okay.
So if I bought one house with was one unit, then I'd probably pay almost as much, maybe more, than at that point the multi. And by the way, when I'm talking about multi, we can call them single family because the banks look at anything 1 to 4 family as being a single family dwelling, and in some ways it's easier to get a loan, and in some ways it's harder to get a loan on a single family 1 to 4 house.
Right.
I specialize generally in 1 to 4s. I had a bunch of units in the city at a time. Anyway, if you don't have any other questions, or we could get back to your questions.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about buying businesses.
Yeah, let's dive in there. Let's dive in. Well, actually, first, before we talk into that, what was the growth like? Because I think for a lot of folks, that first deal to then buying businesses, there's a lot in between. So talk to us a little bit about the growth and maybe growing pains, if there were any, to get to where you are today.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Well, I mean, of course, there's growing pains. You buy something, it goes up in value, and at the time, for instance, coming out of the real estate collapse, which happened in the 90s, or rather 80s to 90s. Then there was another one in 207, 208, depending on how you count it and where you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, physically where you are in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you lots of stories about issues with tenants, mostly bad, some good. How difficult it is in Connecticut to do a lot of things like evict people, and how it isn't a very landlord friendly state. I was lucky at the time, and I do not want to disparage Section 8 because I hear people that swear by it.
Right.
But depending on where you are, Section 8 may be a good option for you, may be required if somebody shows up and wants to rent you and their money is coming from Section 8. Depending on where you live, you may be required to rent to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had good and bad experiences with them, good and bad experiences renting to people, families. Boyfriend moves in, isn't supposed to be there. Pets show up. People. I'm not going to say I've never really had one that was completely destroyed, but I did have one that I had to almost fumigate. Then, you've got bugs and squirrels in the attic.
Do you think that there's a way for folks who hear this, and I think a lot of people will, and they say, that sounds like something that I wouldn't be capable of dealing with because I'm working and I have a family, or even if I don't, and I don't know how to navigate, an eviction or dealing with these type of issues, and it seems like a lot of liability if they destroy the place. Would you have any general broad strokes advice for or guidance for those folks based on your own experience?
Okay, I never learned how to evict anybody.
Hmm.
The reason is because if you pick an attorney who knows how to do evictions, he knows and by the way, what the court is looking for and likes or doesn't like changes over time. Not only that, but a judge in Bridgeport, Connecticut might kick it out for different reasons than a judge in New Haven, Connecticut. And by the way, I'm picking two different things that are in the same state specifically because it's going to be completely different in Massachusetts or Florida or say Texas, where it's much easier to evict people. So when it comes to if you don't know how to do something, you have to hire someone that does. And I got to say that one of the things that I didn't do early enough was hire other people when I should, partner with other people when maybe I should, outsource management to someone else more quickly than I should.
This is actually, Ed, the first time that I've heard that feedback specifically, and it's really important for listeners to hear because I've said on earlier podcasts that for newcomers it may seem like you just need more knowledge and more knowledge and more knowledge and more knowledge before you dive into your first deal. But I've said, just being a fanatical networker, kind of like a networking junkie, can really get you across the finish line to your first deal. But then having relationships can save you, because if God forbid you do have to unfortunately evict somebody, which can happen, they're squatting on your property, you have to know how to handle that. And it can be scary when you don't know who to turn to. So part of that networking is realizing, hey, let me build a strategic relationship with somebody. I don't necessarily need them now, but maybe I'll need them to help me manage some of these deals when I have, 10 of them. Maybe I'll need this attorney in my back pocket when I have a legal issue that is going to require a lot of attention.
Yeah, well, I eventually did that. Just about everything I do at this point is in partner. Like for instance, let's say that you wanted to do things with buildings that were 5+ units. So with 5+ units, they're commercial. You're definitely getting a commercial loan. With 1 to 4, maybe you're getting a commercial loan. You have to decide if you're buying it individually, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to tell you whether you should. I think it's a good idea to use an LLC, but you ought to go talk to experts so they can explain to you why it's a good idea. If you're doing it with an LLC, you're always getting a commercial loan. If you want to work on buildings that are larger than 1 to 4, the best thing that you can do, and I was really late on doing this, is to partner with someone who's already buying those buildings. So
Yep.
what can you do to help? Maybe you can help raise money. Maybe you can help with going out and there are many jobs that happen between saying you're going to find a building, closing on the building, and then managing the building.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if a bank may be very likely to lend you money for for something with 5 units, maybe even if you don't have any 1 to 4 units.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll lend you money on 10, but there's a certain economy of scale you get when you get over 20 or 30.
Speaking of economies of scale and doing things a little bit differently, let's dive into creatively buying businesses. First of all, what is that to our listeners who may not know?
Okay, well, you can go out and start a business, and you can look up online how many businesses that start are still in business after 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And you're not going to be really impressed with that number. If you find a business that's been in business for 5+ years, that is in some sort of an industry where, for instance, at the turn of the century, you would not want to invest in a company that made horse-drawn carriages.
Yeah.
So we want something that's been around. Now, who do you want to buy from? In real estate, you get the best deals from someone we call a don't wanter. You've heard that term before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Why would we not buy a business from someone who doesn't want it either? So one thing that many people do in order to find to find people to buy their houses from or their multis from is to figure out a way why they're not why they are a don't want, or maybe somebody died and they just inherited the house. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're a landlord and you look at the eviction notices and you see that this landlord has 1 or 2 evictions in progress now. Maybe there's someone who might decide they want to sell this week. Maybe it's someone who's been advertising for to fill an apartment for a long time. Well, we do the same thing with real estate. With businesses. But in businesses, there's this hump in births that happened, and there's a certain generation that's called the greatest generation, and the next one after them is called the baby boomers. Then comes X, and then Y, then Z, etc. But what we have right now are a lot of people who maybe the greatest generation, maybe baby boomers who want to retire. Yep. Maybe they spent their last 30 years building this business. They have a legacy. The kids don't want it. They want to do something else. I would be 3rd generation in direct mail advertising if I wasn't the black sheep of the family who went to school for engineering. And then, of course, over the time between I graduated and now, all direct mail advertising has a computer component to it. Right. Because they weren't using the computers then. They are using computers for their mailing list now.
They might need you now, Ed. They might need you now. They might need you now to come in and modify their systems.
They might need me now, but so where was I? So they want to sell. There aren't enough people who want to buy. Supply and demand says that the only way they can sell is to drop their price. So how many people? I'm just pulling up my notes here. So how many? There are literally trillions of dollars that are going to change hands over the next 10 to 15 years. And it's like I said, because there just aren't enough people that want to buy these businesses. And so there's a site called Biz Buy Sell. Biz Buy Sell is one of the websites that's the equivalent of the Zillow for businesses. There's another one called CXRI, and they're similar to each other. So 80% of the businesses on Biz Buy Sell won't sell in a year. Even though then I'm talking about profitable businesses, and there's lots of different reasons. They say 50% of all SMBs and franchises are owned by founders who are at retirement age or older. 75% of all baby boomer businesses are profitable, and baby boomers own 2.3 million SMBs, small to medium-sized businesses. So
wow.
if they can't sell them, either the price comes down or they either get price or terms. I mean, we're talking everything you know about real estate is very easily transferred into this space because we're using the same techniques that many people here have been taught to how creatively buy real estate. We're doing a syndication. We're a syndicated fund. Fund means that we're buying multiple businesses. Rather than a syndication typically buys one thing. We're, like I said, we're buying multiple. And what can you do with the business? There's a whole bunch of things you can do that we can do to make our business more profitable. First of all, we're only looking for businesses that are profitable. We don't want in real estate, you might call it an alligator. We don't want alligators. We never want to have a negative cash flow. We want to take something that already has a positive cash flow and do one of 4 or 5 things that we can do to increase the value and the income stream from the business. So one of the things that businesses often do, they call it a roll-up. In a roll-up, we might go out and find another similar business and tack it on to the business. So take, for instance, let's say an HVAC company. They do heating and air conditioning. So you have an HVAC company. I'm in Florida. Let's say that we buy one in Tampa. And after we buy one in Tampa, we see that there's one for sale in Orlando. Well, these are both very good markets. So let's say that we buy a second one and we either leave it as that name or rebrand it. That gives us a larger economy of scale. There's lots of ways we can save money. For instance, there were 2 businesses with 2 call centers. We don't need 2 call centers anymore. We don't need 2 accountants. We can handle all the marketing from one place. And they tell me that if you bolt 2 of them together of a similar size, they more than double. Maybe they go to 2.5 or 3 times their value because of the economy of scale. You also already know how to run one. And if you know how to run one, you probably can figure out how to run another. Now, because we're going to be buying multiple businesses, the partners are not looking to buy something that's a job.
Right.
So we need to buy something that either has a management team today that can take over from the owner. You know, if the owner leaves and the business falls apart, the owner's involved in every aspect of the business, it's probably not one that we want, although we might install our own president or general manager of that particular business. So other ways we can make money, we might decide that we want to franchise it out. Probably not, but it's a possibility. The next thing we can do is we can add locations. So we can expand towards Orlando from Tampa. The next thing that we want to do with everything we buy, we call it a third leg. You might call it another stream of income. we want another way that we can make money using either the same equipment or using or maybe take the same equipment, use it in a different way, or something that is allied. Like, for instance, let's say that we bought an HVAC system that specialized in homes. We might want to move into commercial. If we're in commercial, maybe we want to make some changes. We want to get our sales trainer in there. We want to make sure if there's 2 or 3 things that it does, see if we could cross train people so that the teams we send out are more flexible as to what they do. Let's see. So, what do we do when we buy a business? First, what businesses are we looking for? So I'm going to look at my notes here. First of all, you can buy any kind of business you want. And if you're in a certain industry, maybe you want to buy, if you're doing real estate, maybe you want to buy a home services business. I was talking to somebody the other day who, actually I partnered with him on a couple. Last year, he bought 72 properties if they had that were zoned to put mobile homes on. If he did a knockdown of all the mobile homes. By the way, when I say he didn't do them all one day. This is as he went through. He had a pipeline, and as he went through the year, he ended up doing 72. So he knocked down what was there. He bought things that were zoned for it so he could put new ones on. He, depending on the age, he may have had to, or what was available on the street, he may have dug a well, he may have done septic. And he says, look, I've done all these septics in the last year, and they just changed some of the code here. So it now costs twice as much to do a septic as it did a year ago. Maybe I should buy a septic company.
Yeah.
He's already buying a company, a mortgage company, and starting a real estate agency. So I guess you'd call this vertical alignment. So we want businesses now. Example, you're in Texas, right?
Right.
So what was the high? Did you say Houston or Dallas?
I'm in Dallas.
Dallas. And how hot was it last summer? Give me a high temperature.
I was told, it can get up to like 115-ish, 120. I wasn't here, but it gets hot. It gets hot.
Okay. So, by the way, I was in Houston the summer before last at a conference there, and it was 103 degrees. So if it's 103, we want to buy businesses of things that people need, not that they want. So if it's 103 degrees and the HVAC system goes in your house, how fast do you need it replaced?
Stat ASAP.
Okay. If you're a 7-Eleven or a Wawa and your air conditioning goes, or the refrigeration goes on your food, and it's 102 degrees, even if it's 70 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a hint. No one's going to buy your warm beer. All right? And if you wait a certain number of hours, you're going to have to throw out everything that's perishable and put in for insurance.
Right.
So if the economy goes south, is Wawa still going to replace their air conditioner or their refrigeration?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, especially if they're in Florida or Texas.
Yeah, they have no choice.
If it's 15 degrees in Minneapolis below zero, how fast are you going to replace your heating?
Pretty darn fast. Yeah.
Okay, so we've established some specific industries we're interested in: HR, IT, marketing, accounting, insurance, and each of those, there's another reason why we have this. For instance, if we buy an insurance business, who do you think is going to supply insurance for all of our companies that are in the fund?
We are.
We are. Now, we are going to do it, and we're going to charge them a right-sized price so that so that each individual one makes money. HR, recruiting, well, businesses need recruiters.
Yeah.
And if they're doing recruiting, maybe we could tack on HR because it's similar. And if we tack on HR, then we can do HR for all of our businesses, and it's kind of a roll up of that particular function that all our businesses do.
I actually have a buddy in San Antonio who's a recruiter, and it's tough because I want him in real estate and he wants me in staffing, and he's constantly sending me opportunities I'm so grateful for. He actually showed me how to revamp my resume using ChatGPT, which I was grateful for a while back. And I told him, hey, you got to go to real estate school, Champion School, which he's going to. So I think there's so much there, and I could really talk about that specifically all day. The idea of not just buying one business, which would be tremendous for folks who are listening, but buying multiple and then interweaving them so that they're getting fair pricing and that they're all more profitable. Combining them where you are able to, so that instead of having one, you're able to have two in the same, and they're doubly profitable. But we are coming up on time here, as much as I would love to talk about this all day with you. Ed, where can folks get a hold of you?
Okay, well, the best place to get a hold of me, I'll give you a telephone number, 321-558-2650. And you can reach me at podcast at letter Q number 5 COMM.com.
I'm assuming, do you have a podcast that people can tune into?
I do not have an active podcast today. Okay. I am probably going to start one. I have had one in the past.
Yeah, I think they're just great tools. We've been doing this now with the Real Estate Pros for 3 weeks, and I think all of us have gotten the bug, the podcast bug now. But that wraps up another episode of the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel, the nation's premier real estate mastermind. I'm your host, Dylan Silver. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.